In 1971, you could walk into any farmhouse kitchen in the Midwest and find a coffee can full of crushed eggshells sitting by the back door. That was the calcium supplement for the tomato patch. Next to it, a bucket of banana peels soaking in water. That was the potassium feed for the roses. These women learned from their mothers, who learned from theirs. Then, somewhere in the 80s, the chemical companies showed up and convinced an entire generation to throw all of that away. These are 11 tricks that generation almost lost. How does a kitchen full of scraps replace a cart full of garden center products? By doing what your grandmother already knew worked. Number 11. The eggshell calcium trick. Every time you crack an egg for breakfast, you're throwing away one of the best soil amendments that money can't buy. Eggshells are largely calcium carbonate, the same active ingredient in the garden lime you'd pay $8 or $9 a bag for at the hardware store. Your grandmother crushed them by hand in a coffee can and scattered them around her tomato plants, her peppers, and her squash. She didn't know the chemistry behind it. She just knew her tomatoes stopped getting those ugly black spots on the bottom. Those black spots are blossom end rot, and they happen when the plant can't pull enough calcium from the soil. A handful of crushed eggshells worked into the planting hole gives the roots slow-release calcium all season long. Rinse them, let them dry on the counter for a day, crush them fine, and work them into the top few inches of soil around your plants. The finer you crush them, the faster they break down. And unlike store-bought lime, eggshells won't spike your soil pH overnight. They release slowly, which is exactly what your plants prefer. If you eat eggs regularly, you can fill a gallon bag with crushed shells in about a month, and that's enough to treat a dozen planting holes. Number 10. Banana peel water. Your grandmother kept a mason jar on the kitchen counter with banana peels soaking in water. It looked strange. It smelled a little funky after a couple of days. But she'd pour that brownish water straight onto her roses and her flowering shrubs, and they bloomed like they were on steroids. Banana peels are loaded with potassium, the nutrient that drives flower production and fruit development. Potassium is also the K in the NP ratio on every bag of commercial fertilizer. So when you buy a $10 box of Bloom Booster, you're paying for something your kitchen trash already provides. Chop 2 or 3 banana peels into a quart jar, fill it with water, let it sit for 48 hours at room temperature, then water your plants with it. Roses, tomatoes, peppers, and flowering annuals all respond well to this. You can refill the jar with fresh water a second time before the peels lose their potency. After that, toss the peels into your compost pile or bury them directly in the garden bed. They'll keep feeding the soil as they break down. The same banana you ate as a morning snack is now feeding your rose bushes for free. That's the kind of efficiency the garden center business model doesn't want you thinking about. Number 9. Wood ash from the fireplace. If your grandmother had a wood stove or a fireplace, she never threw the ash in the trash. She saved it in a metal bucket and spread it around the garden in early spring. Wood ash contains calcium, potassium, and a range of trace minerals including iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc. According to Iowa State University Extension, wood ash typically contains 5 to 8% potassium and up to 20% calcium. Wood ash also raises soil pH, which makes it a free substitute for the agricultural lime that costs $15 to $20 a bag. If your soil runs acidic, and a lot of soil east of the Mississippi does, a light dusting of wood ash in spring can bring your pH closer to the sweet spot where vegetables thrive. Spread about a gallon of ash per 100 square feet and work it into the top layer of soil. One important caution though, don't use ash around blueberries, azaleas, rhododendrons, or any plant that prefers acidic soil. And never use ash from treated lumber, painted wood, or charcoal briquettes. Clean hardwood ash only. If you heat with a wood stove all winter, you're sitting on a season's worth of free garden amendment that would cost you $20 to $30 at the nursery. Number 8. The newspaper and cardboard weed barrier. Your grandmother never bought landscape fabric. She laid down wet newspaper, 6 to 8 sheets thick, right on top of the soil between her rows. Then she covered it with a layer of straw, grass clippings, or weeds couldn't push through. The newspaper blocked all sunlight, and unlike plastic landscape fabric, the newspaper broke down over the season and fed the soil underneath. This technique, sometimes called sheet mulching or lasagna gardening, is documented by Oregon State University Extension as an effective and inexpensive way to suppress weeds while building soil organic matter at the same time. Cardboard works even better for tougher weed problems. Lay flattened cardboard boxes directly on the soil, overlap the edges by a few inches so weeds can't sneak through the seams, and pile 4 to 6 inches of mulch on top. By the end of the season, the cardboard has decomposed, The worms have pulled organic matter into the soil, and you've got softer, richer ground without ever touching a bottle of herbicide. Amazon boxes, cereal boxes, shoe boxes, they all work. Just remove any tape, staples, and glossy coatings before you lay them down. Number 7. Companion planting with marigolds. Your grandmother planted marigolds around the edge of every vegetable bed. She might have said it was because they looked pretty, but something else was going on. French marigold roots release a compound called alpha-terphenol that suppresses root knot nematodes, which are microscopic worms that attack tomato, pepper, and squash roots underground. A peer-reviewed study published in PLOS One found that French marigolds also release airborne limonene, a chemical that repels whiteflies from nearby tomato plants. A border of French marigolds costs about $3 for a pack of seeds. A single application of commercial nematicide can run $40 to $60, and comes with a list of safety warnings that would make your head spin. Your grandmother's version was cheaper, safer, and it gave her yellow and orange flowers to look at all summer. Plant them around the perimeter of your vegetable beds, or tuck them between your tomato cages. They don't need special soil or extra watering. They thrive on neglect, which makes them perfect for budget gardeners. And at the end of the season, let the flower heads dry on the plant, then crush them open and save the seeds. One $3 packet turns into a lifetime supply if you save seeds every fall. Number 6. Homemade compost tea. Commercially packaged liquid plant food runs anywhere from $8 to $20 a bottle, depending on the brand. Your grandmother made her own version for free. She'd fill an old pillowcase or burlap sack with finished compost, tie it shut, and drop it into a 5-gallon bucket of water. After a few days of soaking, the water turned dark brown. She'd use that liquid to water her vegetable garden, diluted roughly 1 part tea to 10 parts water. This homemade compost tea contains a mild concentration of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and beneficial microorganisms. It's not as precisely formulated as commercial products, but it does what your grandmother needed it to do. It gives your plants a gentle nutrient boost mid-season without burning the roots, and it introduces soil biology that helps break down organic matter. The leftover solids in the bag go right back into the compost pile. Total cost, $0. You can brew a new batch every 2 weeks through the growing season. And your plants will show the difference within days. The leaves green up, the flowers get bigger, and the fruit sets heavier. All from a bag of compost and a bucket of water. Number 5. Cinnamon as a natural antifungal. Damping off is the thing that kills seedlings overnight. You'll go to bed and your little tomato seedlings look fine. By morning, they've flopped over at the soil line like someone pinched the stems. A fungal infection ate through the base while you slept. Commercial fungicide treatments run $10 to $15 a bottle. Your grandmother sprinkled cinnamon on the soil surface around her seedlings. Cinnamon contains cinnamaldehyde, which has confirmed antifungal properties. It won't cure an established infection, but as a preventative measure it creates an unfriendly environment for the fungi that cause damping off. Dust a light layer of ground cinnamon over the surface of your seed starting mix after you plant your seeds. You can also dip the cut end of plant cuttings in cinnamon powder before placing them in soil. Gardeners have used this as a budget alternative to commercial rooting powders for decades. A 4-ounce jar of ground cinnamon at the grocery store costs about $3 and will treat hundreds of cuttings and seed trays. Compare that to a bottle of commercial rooting hormone at $12 to $15, and you start to see why your grandmother's spice rack doubled as her garden supply shelf. If you're getting value from these tips, hit subscribe. More budget gardening tricks like this every week. Number 4. Vinegar spray for walkway weeds. Enter the cheapest weed killer you'll ever use. Your grandmother didn't buy Roundup for the weeds growing between the patio stones and the driveway cracks. She poured vinegar on them. Household white vinegar contains about 5% acetic acid, which pulls moisture out of plant cells and kills the foliage on contact. For tougher weeds, she'd add a tablespoon of dish soap per gallon to help the vinegar stick to waxy leaves. The soap breaks down the plant's outer coating so the acid can penetrate. Apply it on a hot, sunny day when there's no rain in the forecast, and the weeds will brown and shrivel within 24 hours. One critical rule your grandmother also knew. Keep this away from any plant you want to keep alive. Vinegar doesn't know the difference between a dandelion and a petunia. Use it only on walkways, driveways, gravel paths, and patio cracks. And skip the salt for. Salt builds up in soil over time and can prevent anything from growing there for years. Your grandmother used vinegar alone and it worked fine. A gallon of white vinegar costs about $3. A gallon of commercial weed killer costs $15 to $20. The math speaks for itself. Number 3. Saving seeds from heirloom vegetables. Every fall, your grandmother would let a few tomatoes get overripe on the vine. She'd scoop the seeds out, rinse them, dry them on a paper towel, and store them in labeled envelopes in a cool, dry drawer. Come spring, she planted those same seeds. She didn't need a trip to the garden center or $3 seed packets. The same tomato variety, year after year, for free. This only works with heirloom and open-pollinated varieties. Hybrids, which are what garden centers primarily sell, don't produce offspring true to the parent plant. You'll get unpredictable results. Heirloom seeds, on the other hand, are genetically stable. Generations of families have passed the same seed lines down, and the plants produced are identical to the ones from the season before. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, peas, lettuce, and herbs are the easiest crops to save seed from. You'll need to learn the basics of isolating varieties so they don't cross-pollinate. But once you get the hang of it, you'll never buy seeds for those crops again. One season's harvest supplies the next season's garden, and there's something deeply satisfying about growing the same tomato variety your family has grown for 3 or 4 generations. That's a living connection to your past that no garden center can put in a packet. Number 2, rainwater collection. Your grandmother had a barrel under the downspout. When it rained, the barrel filled up. She used that water on the garden instead of running the hose. According to the Old Farmer's Almanac, a single inch of rain falling on a 1,000-square-foot roof yields over 600 gallons of water. Rainwater is naturally soft, free of chlorine and fluoride, and plants prefer it to municipal tap water. The chlorine in city water can suppress beneficial soil microorganisms over time. Rainwater doesn't have that. A basic rain barrel costs about $30 to $50, and many municipalities offer rebates or distribute them free through water conservation programs. Elevate the barrel on cinder blocks so gravity feeds the water through a spigot at the bottom. Attach a soaker hose and you've got a drip irrigation system that runs without a pump and without a water bill. Over a full summer, a rain barrel can save a household anywhere from $50 to $200 in water costs depending on garden size and local water rates. If your area gets regular rainfall, 2 barrels connected in series will carry you through most dry spells without ever turning on the hose. Your grandmother would have called that common sense. The garden center would call it lost revenue. Number 1, the compost pile. Everything on this list feeds into this final trick because your grandmother's compost pile was the engine that ran her entire garden. Eggshells, banana peels, coffee grounds, vegetable scraps, grass clippings, fallen leaves, newspaper. All of it went into a pile in the corner of the yard. She turned it with a pitchfork every week or 2. By spring, she had dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling material that she spread across every garden bed. Finished compost improves soil structure, holds moisture, feeds beneficial bacteria and fungi, and provides a slow-release supply of every nutrient your plants need. A bag of commercial compost costs $5 to $8. A bag of premium potting mix costs $10 to $15. Your grandmother made a superior product from materials she would have otherwise thrown in the trash. The garden center industry has spent decades convincing you that good soil comes in bags. It doesn't. It comes from patience, kitchen scraps, and a corner of your yard that nobody has to look at. You don't need a fancy tumbler or a 3-bin system. A simple pile on bare ground, roughly 3 feet by 3 feet, is all it takes. Layer brown material like leaves and cardboard with green material like kitchen scraps and grass clippings. Keep it as damp as a wrung-out sponge. Turn it when you think of it. In 3 to 6 months, nature does the rest. Your grandmother didn't need a YouTube video to learn this. She just watched her mother do it. Every single trick on this list cost either nothing or close to nothing. They don't require special tools, expensive products, or subscription services. Just knowledge that was common 50 years ago and got buried under a mountain of marketing. Your grandmother's garden wasn't beautiful because she spent a lot of money. It was beautiful because she didn't waste any. That knowledge is still here, waiting for the next generation to pick it back up. If even one of his tricks saves you a trip to the garden center this season, drop a comment and tell me which one. More like this on the channel.